Chapter 130. Discussion 1-2. Marquis Xiumu was undoubtedly extremely excited, his agitated heart almost leaping out of his chest. Upon learning that Zaire, who had been missing for years, had returned home, Marquis Xiumu was overjoyed. After instructing the Blizzard Knight Legion on the follow-up work, he ignored the advice of his adjutant and hurriedly rushed back to the Marquis's residence with his full strength, surrounded by his blue energy power. Subsequently, anxious to see his granddaughter, he inquired about Zaire's location from a maid and hastily dashed to her whereabouts. He couldn't wait to embrace his long-lost granddaughter. For a moment, he didn't even listen to the words of the young lady and the maids behind him. The shouts of the other servants were ignored as well. At this moment, the only thought in Xiumu's mind was to see his granddaughter. Thus, Marquis Xiumu excitedly entered the bathroom. However, impulsive Xiumu naturally suffered his wife's righteous iron fist. Just as he opened the door to the bathroom without seeing the situation inside, Aurora's fist, wrapped in the thunderous energy, rapidly enlarged in his eyes. Banged! Accompanied by a loud bang, Xiumu was abruptly sent flying and embedded into a wall not too far away. "You old man, can't you knock?" As everyone, including Yumo, watched with their mouths agape, the Lord of Windy City was comically sent flying by his wife with a single punch. This. She's quite fierce, 00. Casting a sidelong glance at the imposing Aurora, Yumo couldn't help but exclaim in her heart. There. After finishing her bath and being forcibly dressed in a cute white noble princess dress by the maids, Yumo was led by Aurora to her original bedroom. By the way, she was also going to meet her so-called grandfather. Zaire, is it really Zaire? With a bruised face, Marquis Xiumu's eyes brimmed with tears upon seeing the familiar pink-haired girl. He was trembling with excitement and couldn't express his feelings. The next moment, with his wife's approval, Xiumu eagerly rushed forward and hugged the pink-haired girl without a word. "Welcome home, Zaire." Holding his granddaughter after a long time, Xiumu felt a surge of emotions. During this period, Xiumu had been exhausted by a series of events, such as Yuener's disappearance and the attack of the Abyssal Demon. At this moment, the fatigue and pain on his face seemed to vanish due to the child's presence. His aged face showed a long-lost smile from the heart. The maids, head maid Jera, and the old butler Audite all revealed a relieved smile. Feeling the continuous goodwill that people around her were releasing, Yumo frowned slightly. At this moment, she was quite conflicted. How should I handle this? After all, Yumo knew very well that she couldn't possibly be their granddaughter, but merely an abyssal demon borrowing the appearance of their granddaughter. Perhaps the Zaire they spoke of had already died, just as they had previously anticipated. As for Yuener, what would their expressions be if they found out she had become an abyssal demon? Glancing at the overjoyed Marquis holding her, and the equally delighted Marchioness beside him, Yumo slowly closed her eyes. From the current situation, it was only a matter of time before Yuener fully accepted Yumo's power and became a demon king-level being. The sleeping girl just needed the right opportunity to awaken. In a certain sense, Yuener could be considered Yumo's daughter since she had integrated Yumo's origin power into her body. In that case, treating Duke and Duchess Marquis, who were Yuener's grandparents, with kindness and caring for their emotions were perhaps Yumo's responsibility. Thinking of this, Yumo abandoned her initial plan to release the power of her shadow. In the future, the fact that their granddaughter had become an abyssal demon would undoubtedly bring another painful blow to the family. For now, she would let them enjoy the joy of their granddaughter's return. Besides, the identity of the young miss of the Marquis family seemed to be quite useful to her. Mengxi wanted to take her to the Asumo's church. In that case, her original slave identity had to be resolved. Otherwise, it would be difficult for her to accompany Menxi in the future. If she were to accompany Menxi as the daughter of a marquis, people like Cabin, who valued status and bloodline, would probably keep quiet, right? Oh, right. And there was another perk, Tilda. If she became the young miss of the Marquis family, she might also obtain the title of Crown Princess candidate. At that time, she might be able to meet the Son of Destiny. Yumo was somewhat curious about the mysterious Son of Destiny since he was also a chosen one to save the world. After that, she would have to arrange for Menxi and the Son of Destiny to meet. If they got along well, they could work together in the future to kill her. However, somehow this thought made her feel a bit upset. Oh well, for now, I would silently play the role of an amnesiac slave girl. Having decided, Yumo completely gave up resisting and allowed Marquis Xiumu to hold her in his arms. However, a moment later, she seemed to think of something, furrowed her brow and doubted her decision. Speaking of which, if I truly became the daughter of the Marquis family, it seemed I would have to face a rather troublesome problem. Several hours later at dusk, in Marquis Xiumu's office, looking at the stunning silver-haired girl brought by the Blizzard Knight Legion, even the battle-hardened Xiumu couldn't help but be slightly stunned. It wasn't until Aurora pinched him fiercely on the back of his neck that he returned to his senses, thanks to the intense pain. As expected of the girl of destiny, this beauty, this temperament, truly incomparable to ordinary people. Even the fourth imperial princess, known as the Empire's Flower, might not be able to compare to her. After recovering his senses, Xiumu couldn't help but judge this in his heart. After a moment of contemplation, Xiumu displayed the demeanor befitting the head of the Marquis family. He solemnly met the beautiful light purple eyes of the silver-haired girl. On behalf of the entire Marquis family, I thank you again for saving my granddaughter, Miss Menxi. As he spoke, Xiumu even bowed slightly. As a token of gratitude, we hope you can rest at the Marquis residence for the next few days. We will offer you the most extravagant hospitality. In response to the Marquis' words, Menxi fell silent for a moment. With a thoughtful gaze, she glanced at the pink-haired girl sitting next to Aurora on the sofa. A hint of complex emotions emerged in Menxi's eyes but quickly disappeared. Afterward, Menxi gracefully curtsied and politely responded, "Thank you for your hospitality, Marquis. May I ask how long I can stay here?" "You can stay as long as you'd like," Xiumu replied courteously. "You are Zaire's benefactor, and our family will always welcome you. We will treat you with the highest etiquette. If there's anything you need, please let us know, and we will do our best to fulfill it." "I see," Menxi said with a faint smile. "Thank you for your kindness, Marquis. However, I do have a request that I hope you can grant." "Please go ahead." "Could I, in the future, take your granddaughter to Asumo's?" However, before Menxi could finish her sentence, Marquis Xiumu shook his head resolutely and interrupted her solemnly. "I'm sorry, but I cannot agree to that." Upon hearing this, Menxi's smile froze on her face. Yumo, sitting on the sofa, couldn't help but cover her forehead with her hand. That's right. This was the point that made Yumo quite conflicted. If she truly became the daughter of the Marquis family, the elderly Marquis couple might not let her leave easily. If all else failed, she might have to think of other methods. While Yumo was struggling with her thoughts, Menxi had already regained her composure, casting a puzzled gaze at Marquis Xiumu. "Why not?" "I apologize, Miss Menxi. I know you have plans to take Zaire to Asumo's church, but I don't want her to leave Wind City," Xiumu said resolutely. Having regained his granddaughter, he had already decided to spoil her, and naturally wouldn't be willing to let her go to the Red Lotus Leaf Empire thousands of miles away. At the same time, although he was grateful to Menxi in his heart, fundamentally, Marquis Xiumu still looked down on the charlatans of Asumo's church. Allow his granddaughter to go to Asumo's church. How could that be possible? He would never agree to that. Faced with Xiumu's resolute words, Mengxi maintained a calm demeanor. After casting a thoughtful glance at the conflicted Yumo, Mengxi's lips imperceptibly curled into a slight smile. I understand your concerns, Marquis Xiumu, but what if your granddaughter, Xia Omo, or rather Zaire, is willing to go to the Red Lotus Leaf Empire? Zaire willing. Hearing Mengxi's words, Xiumu hesitated with pursed lips, casting a complex gaze at the pink-haired girl embraced by his wife. Xiumu's deep blue eyes revealed a hint of hesitation at this moment. Indeed, Zaire doesn't remember us now. If she truly wants to go back with the child of destiny, what should I do? Should I stop her? But if I really stop her, what will Zaire think? For a moment, Xiumu was at a loss for words, standing there not knowing what to do. To go to the Red Lotus Leaf Empire, huh? However, as Xiumu hesitated, an untimely voice suddenly reached everyone's ears. I'm sorry, Marquis, but I believe your daughter will neither stay in Wind City nor go to the Red Lotus Leaf Empire. As the man's voice echoed, the door to the conference room was abruptly pushed open. The next moment, a white-haired man with piercing eyes, wearing the royal emblem and a plain countenance, pushed the door open and stepped into the office. Your daughter is the designated candidate for the crown princess by the royal family. She should be heading to the imperial capital Sky Dome, as that's where she belongs. As his words fell, the expressions of everyone present immediately darkened. As one of the crown prince's confidants and possessing exceptional magical talent, Pelachi had always been arrogant in the imperial capital, Sky Dome. However, now, in this border city, he had repeatedly been treated harshly by the Marquis family. Today, he had requested to see Aurora on behalf of the crown prince, yet he was stood up. How could the insulted Pelachi swallow his pride? In his anger, he disregarded the maids and Marquis family guards and went straight to the Marquis's office. After hearing the conversation between the Marquis and a woman, Pelachi clenched his fists in displeasure. Then he pushed open the office door and stormed in. I apologize, Marquis, but your daughter will neither stay in Wind City nor go to the Red Lotus Leaf Empire and join Asumo's church. Since she is the royal family's designated candidate for crown princess, she must go to the imperial capital, Sky Dome, and participate in the selection ceremony next month. Pelachi's words were arrogant and domineering, causing Mengxi and the Marquis family members present to show signs of displeasure. Even Yumo frowned slightly upon hearing the word selection. Naturally, Xiumu was the one most annoyed by Pelachi's rude words. However, considering the bigger picture, the Marquis didn't get angry on the spot but asked respectfully instead. Envoy, the royal decree didn't require Zaire to go to the imperial capital. How could she become a candidate for the crown princess? No, Marquis, you must have misunderstood. What? The royal family's intention is to invite a direct daughter of the Marquis family to Sky Dome. It doesn't matter who it is. Since Miss Yuener has gone missing and Miss Zaire has returned, let Miss Zaire replace Miss Yuener and go to the imperial capital. How can this be? Why not? Pelachi's black eyes narrowed slightly, coldly watching Xiumu. Marquis, are you planning to defy the royal order? Do you think Wind City still has the power to challenge the royal family? If you want to resist, I suggest you think carefully about whether you have the ability to withstand a magical fission bomb. Upon hearing the words magical fission bomb, Xiumu's tall body visibly shuddered. This detail, undoubtedly, was captured by Pelachi. He couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Indeed, using the fission bomb's reputation to intimidate had a good effect. The Marquis was clearly shaken. Of course, actually using a magical fission bomb to attack imperial citizens was impossible, as it would cause internal unrest. Besides, there were only 2 magical fission bombs left, which had to be saved to deter the Red Lotus Leaf Empire when necessary. Pelachi said this, naturally, to pressure Xiumu into sending his granddaughter to the imperial capital. By then, even if the Marquis's daughter wasn't chosen as the crown princess, there would be countless ways to keep her in the imperial capital as a hostage. Everyone knew how much the Marquis doted on his granddaughter. At that time, the crown prince could use her to control the disobedient northern region and gradually weaken the Marquis family's influence. Marquis, how have you considered the matter? Pelachi aggressively asked. While Xiumu, indeed, as he had anticipated, clenched his fists tightly and fell silent. Watching the conflicted Marquis, Pelachi's mouth curled slightly upward. However, at this moment, the Marchioness Aurora, who was constantly comforting the pink-haired girl, expressionlessly glanced at Pelachi and said indifferently, "Envoy, I'm afraid you must have misunderstood something." "Hm, madam, what do you mean by that?" Pelachi couldn't help but look at Aurora with a somewhat heavy expression. Sometimes, he was more wary of the Marchioness than the powerful but impulsive Xiumu. As Pelachi expected, Aurora bluntly said, "Zaire and Yuaner are not quite the same." "What do you mean by that?" "Zaire is the heir to the dukedom. According to the imperial law, an heir who has been missing for less than 5 years can still retain their inheritance rights. In other words, Zaire is a junior marquis and cannot become a substitute for the crown princess consort Tilda." Aurora's words were full of provocation. Annoyed, Pelachi's veins bulged. Subsequently, the royal envoy fiercely glanced at Benjamin, who was hiding in the corner behind him. "Hee, madam, don't joke around. Haven't you already passed on the Marquis's inheritance rights to Benjamin?" Who said that? Benjamin indeed has the right to inherit, and I've said so before. However, the official inheritance transfer procedures haven't been completed yet. Why would you think I've already passed it on to Benjamin? What? Hearing this, Pelachi's face couldn't maintain composure, and he angrily glared at Benjamin nearby. "You bastard! To get in good with the crown prince, you dare to deceive me." On the other side, after feeling Pelachi's dissatisfied gaze, Benjamin shivered. In a tangled state, the young man from the Marquis family couldn't help but burst into the office. After hearing Aurora say she wanted to return the inheritance rights to Zaire, this heir could no longer sit still. And after seeing Pelachi's questioning gaze, Benjamin's heart became even more panicked. He had finally obtained the position of the family heir, with great difficulty, and finally won the approval of the crown prince. He couldn't just lose it like this. So, under Aurora's slightly solemn gaze, Benjamin rushed into the office and angrily pointed at the pink-haired girl. I object. Who knows if this girl is really Miss Zaire? Who can prove she's not a spy sent by other forces to control our family?" "Benjamin!" Xiumu roared with an imposing presence. "What nonsense are you talking about?" However, with Greed's support, this time Benjamin managed to withstand the killing intent emanating from Xiumu's side. Then he said righteously, "Miss Zaire disappeared at such a young age. How could she, pampered and spoiled, possibly have survived until now? This person must be an impostor." "Benjamin, what do you mean by that?" "Marquis, I'm doing all this for the family. This girl might have some hidden agenda, who knows? And we haven't even confirmed if she's really Miss Zia yet, so just letting her become the heir, I doubt the other family members will agree." As he spoke, Benjamin pointed solemnly through the window towards the direction of the cemetery. "I suggest we let the girl meet the guardian beast. The guardian beast can see through souls. If she's really Miss Zia, the guardian beast will recognize her." Benjamin's tone gradually became sinister, and upon hearing this, Xiumu and Aurora fell into a brief silence, casting complicated glances at Yumo. Although they had already accepted Yumo as their granddaughter, the final confirmation was still lacking. If it was true, that would be great. If not, wouldn't that be sending the child to her death? The guardian beast was not a merciful creature. For a moment, the Marquis couple became entangled in their thoughts. However, unexpectedly, the pink-haired girl who had been held in Aurora's arms for a long time spoke up slowly. I want to go see Zaire, Aurora exclaimed in surprise. In response, the pink-haired girl looked squarely at Aurora and with an uncharacteristically resolute tone said, I want to try, I also want to know whether or not I'm the child of this family. With that, Yumo unconsciously revealed a mischievous smile. From the conversation earlier, Yumo could easily deduce that the identity of Zaire would bring her quite a bit of trouble. In addition to having a crown prince behind her, the so-called grandparents were unwilling to let her and Menxi join the Asumo's church, which went against her original intention. As such, although feeling a little sorry for this family, she had to make it clear that she was not their granddaughter. Since Menxi was present, it was not appropriate to display the power of the shadow. So, why not just take advantage of the guardian beast? Wasn't it said that it could see through souls? It should be able to confirm that she wasn't the so-called Zaire, right? I'm really clever, Tilda. Yumo couldn't help but laugh inwardly. At the same time, on the other side, Benjamin, seeing Yumo agreeing, couldn't help but reveal a cruel smile. She's really seeking death. Benjamin knew full well that Zaire couldn't have survived. Even if there was a 1 in 10,000 chance that the girl had miraculously survived and returned to the Marquis mansion, he had ways to ensure she would die at the hands of the guardian beast. I'm sorry, little girl, Benjamin muttered insincerely in his heart. While displaying his eerie smile, Benjamin's gaze caught a glimpse of a stunning silver-haired girl leaning against the wall. Menxi's divinely beautiful face and figure made Benjamin shudder involuntarily. However, he soon furrowed his brows. Wait a second. Silver hair, purple eyes, and wearing the knight uniform of the Asumo's church. This girl, could she be the target those people from the Divine Punishment sect want to kill, to protect the Northern Territory and resist the frontline invasion of the Abyssal demons? The Marquis family naturally has some hidden cards. Otherwise, if a real Demon King-level attack occurs, it would undoubtedly be impossible for Xiumu, a sword saint, to repel the Demon King's existence. The trump card of the Marquis family is the guardian beast, the Thundercat, which signed an alliance contract with them hundreds of years ago. This beast possesses the power of a rank 8 holy beast. At this moment, in a quiet forest behind the Marquis family cemetery, a giant beast with a pitch-black body and covered in purple thunder patterns lay leisurely on the grass. It enjoyed the delicious delicacies prepared by the Marquis family. Meow, Tilda. So comfortable, Tilda. After swallowing a fish that was about 2 meters long, the Thundercat scratched its head contentedly. Then the 4-legged giant beast named Thundercat pierced a fish with its claws, accompanied by the release of a slight thunderbolt. In an instant, the fish was roasted to a crispy outside and tender inside. Dipped in some sauce, Thundercat threw the fish into its mouth and delightfully enjoyed the tantalizing flavors. As expected, it's tastier after being roasted. While enjoying the delicious food, Thundercat lazily patted the ground, looking around the comfortable living environment with deep emotions. The days of food and clothes coming effortlessly now were a far cry from the days when it could not fill its stomach in the harsh winter forest. Each time it enjoyed good food, Thundercat couldn't help but feel gratitude in its heart. My decision was truly correct. No one would want to stay in the winter forest. more than 300 years ago, when it was still a young chieftain of the Thunder Beast clan. It couldn't stand the oppression of the abyssal demons any longer. Although it had an independent habitat in the eastern part of the forest due to Lady Yumo's guidance, it still essentially lived a life of dependence. At that time, as a holy rank magical beast, equal 7th tier expert, it would have been revered as a ruler if it were outside. But in the winter forest, a rank 5 abyssal demon dared to steal its food. And if it tried to resist, Lady Yumo might not say anything, but those little Demon King ancestors would directly beat it up. In this way, even though it was a holy rank creature, it sometimes couldn't even eat its fill and had to endure constant humiliation. Therefore, 300 years ago, after being brutally beaten by that terrifying woman called Inferno, it chose to leave home, to escape from the Thunder Beast clan and the entire winter forest. Fortunately, the heavens seemed to favor it, and Inferno, who had been watching the magical beast herd, seemed to be preoccupied with taking care of her sister during that time. Seizing this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, after experiencing numerous trials and tribulations, Thundercat escaped the winter forest. This was arguably the most correct decision it had ever made in its life. After leaving the winter forest, Thundercat, J, immediately gained the fear of other magical beasts, and the humans outside, because of its holy rank strength, were equally respectful to it. Life had become incomparably better. For a moment, Jay's heart was enveloped with ecstasy. After all, it would no longer have to live under the tyranny of the abyssal demons. After wandering for a few years, it signed an alliance contract with the Marquis family and began to enjoy its laid-back, comfortable days. Actually, according to the contract, the Marquis family provided for its needs, and in return, it was to protect the family in times of need or fight against the invasion of abyssal demons alongside them. However, it wasn't worried about battling the abyssal demons at all. After all, having lived in the great winter forest for so long, it was well aware that Lord Yumo would not send a large-scale attack, and even if there was one, those demon king-level creatures wouldn't come out. This deal was a sure win. And so, after signing the alliance contract, it began to enjoy centuries of blissful, homebound life. Although it had stayed at home for so long, it didn't neglect its cultivation. With the help of some medicines provided by the Marquis family, the already talented Jay quickly broke through to the 8th level, becoming a top-notch powerful beast in the continent. Life became more and more pleasant. Until half a month ago. The large-scale invasion of abyssal demons and the appearance of Snow Devourer almost scared it to death. Even though it was now at the 8th level, having been a homebody for so long, it didn't have the confidence to confront a demon king-level existence. Fortunately, the abyssal demons eventually retreated, and it was relieved as it was just forced out, ready to enter the battlefield, and it hurriedly returned to its homebound life. However, at the moment while eating fish, it began to ponder its life as a beast. Come to think of it, since the abyssal demons were invading now, did that mean the demons' temple changed their strategy? If so, would it be better to leave the north and try my luck in the south? After all, I don't want to risk its life fighting demon king-level demons. Nevertheless, after thinking about it, it couldn't help but reveal a conflicted look. No matter what, I don't really like the weather in the south, and I don't want to give up its current comfortable life with the Marquis family. After all, whether the abyssal demons would come or not was still an unknown. As it pondered its path as a beast, two strange auras suddenly intruded into its territory, causing the powerful 8th level beast to show a fierce, murderous glare. Who is it who dares to intrude into my territory? In an instant, driven by the instinct to expel intruders, It transformed into a purple lightning bolt and rushed to the edge of the forest. Its overwhelming aura, accompanied by earth-shaking lightning, spread wildly from its center, causing those outside the forest to reveal uneasy expressions. The next moment, under the complicated gazes of the people outside, a nearly 10-meter-tall, fearsome beast exuding strong purple lightning appeared before them. The terrifying, oppressive aura, with the appearance of Thundercat, rapidly spread and weighed heavily on everyone's shoulders like a mountain. There were already dozens of people from the Marquis family who had come to the guardian beast's territory. However, regarding those who hadn't stepped into its territory, Thundercat chose to ignore them. Its fierce gaze focused on two figures not far away, the ones who had trespassed into its territory. As an 8th-level magical beast, it had its dignity. Its territory must not be violated. Humans outside, the Marquis family would be expelled without hesitation if they entered. At this moment, the white-haired man stepped forward respectfully and said, "Guardian Beast, please help us verify the identity of this young lady, Zyre." Hearing this, Thundercat's deep purple eyes narrowed slightly. Ziomu. Looking at the familiar white-haired middle-aged man, it couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. The patriarch of the Amarquis family and its partner wouldn't be attacked by it as long as they didn't show hostility or provoke it intentionally. The problem was the little girl next to Ziomu. Staring at the timid pink-haired girl beside Ziomu, Thundercat's face turned fierce. Although the little girl looked strikingly similar to Uenner and Zaire, Thundercat, with its extraordinary sensing ability, could instantly feel the uniqueness of her aura. Combined with Ziomu's previous question, it suddenly understood the cause of the matter. Probably some ignorant fool was impersonating Zaire, trying to infiltrate the Marquis family, to dare appear before me. And furthermore, this aura, feeling the strong ebony fragrance on the pink-haired girl's clothes, Thundercat's murderous intent in its eyes became increasingly dense. After all, it despised the smell of ebony. Not only did they dare to impersonate a member of the Marquis family, but they also dared to bring this odor to meet me. What a death wish! Since you seek death, I will send you on your way. Enraged, the thunderous power surrounding Thundercat suddenly surged. The giant beast opened its massive mouth and roared earth-shatteringly at the pink-haired girl. In the next moment, under the horrified gazes of most people, Thundercat transformed into a bolt of lightning and charged murderously toward the pink-haired girl. Seeing this unexpected scene, the Marquis Ziomu, who stood beside the girl, turned pale and hurriedly tried to intervene. Unfortunately, a saint-level existence like him couldn't possibly stop the 8th-level Thundercat. Although it was unclear why the guardian beast would suddenly unleash its fury, the death of the little girl seemed to be a foregone conclusion. Some timid people even closed their eyes, unable to bear witnessing the bloody scene. However, just as Thundercat's sharp claws were about to make contact with the girl, the eyes of this thunderous giant beast suddenly narrowed. Because as it got closer to the girl, it suddenly noticed some presences that could scare it to death, like the blood-colored butterfly on the girl's collar. What? What the heck? A butterfly, a blood-patterned butterfly, a blood butterfly. I'm effing kid. What was Thundercat afraid of? Undoubtedly, it was the Abyssal Demon, the Demon King tier Abyssal Demon. Although it was an 8th-tier existence, Thundercat knew very well that it didn't have the ability to challenge a Demon King tier being. The shadow of being humiliated by Inferno in the past was always vivid in its mind. Of course, apart from the Demon King tier Abyssal Demon, there was another existence that Thundercat dreaded even more. The Demon Temple, also known as Lady Yumo. Although Lady Yumo seemed to have a good temper in her daily life, Thundercat wouldn't dare to provoke her even if it had 100 times more courage. It had to be aware that once it provoked Lady Yumo, even if she didn't get angry, it would definitely be targeted by those demon kings. If targeted by one demon king, it might still have a chance to survive. But if targeted by 6 demon kings, it might as well start preparing its last will and testament. Originally, Thundercat thought that after leaving the cold winter great forest, it would only encounter demon king-tier beings at most. It estimated that it would never meet Lady Yumo in its lifetime, since the demon temple couldn't move around, right? However, today Thundercat found out it was wrong, terribly wrong. At this moment, looking at the seemingly harmless pink-haired girl in front of it and the blood butterfly hidden in her collar, Thundercat's eyes suddenly narrowed. An unprecedented trembling sensation surfaced in its heart. In an instant, cold sweat streamed down. The familiar blood-red butterfly immediately triggered the nightmare in Thundercat's heart. And, as far as it could remember, there was only one existence who could control the blood butterfly. Moreover, feeling the subtle power emanating from the pink-haired girl's fingertips, Thundercat's heart abruptly stopped. Its entire beastly face turned into a famous painting of some world at this moment. As the young chieftain of the Thunder Beast clan. In the past, during the spring festival celebrations in the cold winter great forest, it had accompanied the chieftain to visit Lady Yumo at the demon temple more than once. It had also come into contact with Lady Yumo's energy hands several times. Her aura had left a profound impression on Thundercat. Although the power radiating from the pink-haired girl's fingertips wasn't strong, Thundercat still recognized that this aura was identical to Lady Yumo's. The insufficient power was probably because this little girl deliberately suppressed it, so as not to attract attention from others. That is to say, this seemingly insignificant little creature in front of it was actually Lady Yumo. "Are you kidding me? Please don't mess with me." Thundercat couldn't help but let out a hysterical roar in its heart. It knew very well that if it really attacked now, even if it wasn't torn to pieces by Lady Yumo directly, those Demon King abyssal demons would definitely devour it alive. Perhaps this day next year would be its death anniversary. It had come a long way to reach its current position and couldn't just fail like this. However, considering that it had already taken action, Thundercat felt an urge to cry but had no tears. Its brain was working at high speed, pondering how to break this deadlock of certain death. What the hell should I do now? Yes, there's a way. In a flash, a bright idea struck Thundercat's mind. On the other side, faced with the incoming Jay, Ziumu's heart was filled with despair. Jay is the name of Thundercat. Could it be that this child isn't Zaire? How could this be? No. Even if she isn't, I can't let her be killed by the guardian beast just like that. What's going on? The guardian beast is usually so gentle. How did it suddenly go berserk this time? With a heart full of doubt, Ziumu still quickly mobilized all the fighting spirit in his body, trying to save the innocent girl from Jay's grasp. At this moment, the pink-haired girl, who is the protagonist in our Yumo, though she also put on a terrified expression, her heart was actually quite calm and even a bit unhappy. And just recognize that I'm not Zaire and drive me away. Wouldn't that be enough? Is there any need to attack me? This makes it hard for me to continue acting, you know. The slave girl she's playing needs to stay alive, leaving Wind City and accompany Menxi back to the church. How could she just be killed by a guardian beast like that? Yumo pouted unhappily. So, in order to delay Jay's actions and give Ziumu time to save her, Miss Yumo slowly raised her hand, accumulating a negligible amount of silent shadow power at her fingertips. Her blue eyes narrowed slightly, locking onto Jay's limbs. However, just when almost everyone except Minxie was showing a terrified expression, just when Yumo was about to take action, an unexpected scene suddenly occurred. In the next instant, under the dumbfounded gazes of everyone, Jay pounced toward Yumo. No. Strictly speaking, he pounced towards the space behind Yumo and violently waved his sharp claws. Suddenly, the claws enveloped in the power of lightning released a terrifying thunderous light. In the next moment, the sky and the earth seemed to crumble as a creature resembling a cockroach leisurely flew behind Yumo, along with several stone statues not far away, instantly turned to ashes. What's going on? Wasn't it supposed to attack the young lady? This sudden turn of events left everyone baffled. Not far away, Aurora, who had just rushed out a few steps, also stood in a daze, looking at her guardian beast with an incredulous expression. Under everyone's puzzled gaze, the imposing jay continued to wave its sharp claws, sending one cockroach after another to the west. Looking at the raging thunderous light in the sky, everyone felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Their minds went blank, and even Xiumu, who had been eagerly trying to save the girl, froze in place. Jay is he exterminating bugs? Such a grandiose pest control. After taking in this scene, Aurora rubbed her eyes in disbelief, as if questioning her own life. Jay, do you hate bugs that much? The next instant, an even more bizarre scene unfolded before everyone. They saw, after killing a few cockroaches, Jay, who was still fierce just moments ago, suddenly retracted his murderous aura and the raging power of thunder. Its massive body also shrank rapidly at a visible speed. In an instant, it's transformed into a little black cat with two tails. Then, under everyone's astonished gaze, the little black cat trotted over, tail wagging, to the pink-haired little girl's side, and affectionately rubbed its small face against the little girl's foot. At this moment, Jay had not an ounce of the majestic guardian beast's demeanor, seemingly turning into a pampered pet cat. Looking at the little black cat beside the girl, Xiumu was completely bewildered. However, as an experienced warrior, he quickly snapped out of the shock. Immediately, his eyes filled with ecstasy. Although Xiumu didn't know why Jay had such an inexplicable performance, judging by its intimate actions with the pink-haired girl, this girl must be his granddaughter. She is indeed Zaire. With that thought, the extremely excited Marquis Xiumu gave Yumo a high toss, and his excited voice rang out in everyone's ears. Ha, I knew I couldn't be mistaken. You are indeed Zaire, ha. Seeing this scene, the surrounding members of the Marquis family cheered. Aurora, who had been anxious for a long time, also let out a sigh of relief, smiling as she walked towards her husband and granddaughter. At this moment, while almost everyone was cheering, some people felt a little more complicated. At the forefront was Our Lady, Yumo. Lowering her head, she glanced at the black cat that clung to her leg, continuously trying to be cute. Countless black lines appeared on Yumo's forehead. What the is going on? This isn't according to my plan, hey. Similarly, standing there dumbfounded, besides Yumo, Benjamin, who had suggested letting Yumo see the guardian beast, clenched his fists in anger and stared fiercely at the pink-haired girl who was being fawned over by everyone. How is this possible? He had secretly ordered someone to apply the undetectable scent of ebony on the girl's clothes. That's Jay's most detested smell. Why? Why didn't the beast show any disgust at all? And even went to hug the girl's thigh. Do you have any sense of being a guardian beast? Benjamin found it difficult to accept and somewhat hysterically roared in his heart. No, it can't go on like this. If things continue this way, the inheritance rights he had finally obtained would be taken away. No, it won't do. With that thought, Benjamin decided to make a desperate move. Seizing the opportunity when no one was paying attention, Benjamin left the graveyard area and took out the communication magic stone from his spatial ring. After taking a deep breath, Benjamin spoke respectfully. "Master, I have something to report." Benjamin, unable to accept the truth, soon sulkily left the Marquis family cemetery. However, since almost everyone's attention was focused on the pink-haired girl, no one noticed that something was wrong with Benjamin. Aurora was no exception. After confirming that the pink-haired girl was her granddaughter, Aurora's heart was filled with relief. Although she still couldn't figure out Jay's strange behavior earlier, at this moment, those things were not very important. Now, for the Marquis family, the priority was to quickly hold a celebration party to welcome Zaire's return. Therefore, the Marchioness immediately summoned Audite and other servants and began to make elaborate arrangements. In Aurora's view, since the child belonged to the Marquis family bloodline, they shouldn't treat her poorly. A formal welcome banquet was essential. At the same time, it would help to alleviate the child's anxiety and fear. After all, the scene of Jay's attack earlier still left tremendous pressure. Aurora believed that a large celebration was necessary to appease Zaire's heart and to increase her closeness with the people in the mansion. No matter what, she did not want Zaire to be as wary of the people in the mansion as she had been before. So, time soon came to evening. Under Aurora's careful preparation, a grand welcome party was held in the mansion. Well, calling it grand might not be entirely accurate. Considering her granddaughter's timid nature, Aurora ultimately gave up on holding a formal party. She did not invite any famous nobles in the City of Wind, and even if they wanted to attend, Aurora bluntly rejected them one by one. She didn't want these hypocritical people to frighten her adorable granddaughter. Thus, the party attendees consisted of the people in the mansion, a few members of the Marquis family, and several members of the church, including Menxi. Of course, the scale of the party was not too large since Aurora gave up on inviting many acquaintances and even friends, prioritizing Zaire's feelings. Also, since almost half of the people in the mansion were still searching for Yuenner's whereabouts, the number of participants wasn't very high. However, despite this, the party hall was still bustling. To celebrate the young lady's return, the people in the mansion prepared an array of delicacies and various entertainments, and one after another greeted the young lady, offering gifts. The party proceeded smoothly. After receiving greetings from the old servants in the mansion, Yumo felt mentally exhausted. Acting all the time. It's really tiring. Yumo couldn't help but complain inwardly. Taking advantage of the preparation time for the next stage of the party, Yumo in a blue princess dress couldn't help but scamper out of the hall, intending to catch her breath. Having lived in the cold winter forest for over 500 years, she still wasn't used to the feeling of being stared at by a group of people. Even though the gazes of these people were mostly filled with goodwill. Free from the stares and now in the moonlit garden, Miss Yumo took a long, deep breath. At the same time, she looked at the sky with mixed emotions. Sitilda, what should I do now? Originally, I planned to use this guardian beast to prove that I was not the granddaughter of the Marquis family. Afterward, I could then leave the city and go to the Asumo's church with Menxi with legitimate reasons. As for her slave status, getting help from the Black Rose family should easily resolve it, and she didn't need to use the identity of this fiancé to meet the son of destiny. Menxi was the girl of destiny, and following her, she would eventually meet Zutiano. There was no need for her to be anxious. However, the reality was completely different from what she had imagined. Under normal circumstances, as long as the guardian beast rejected her, she could prove that she was not the real Zaire. But who would have known that the smelly cat would directly hug her thigh and rub against her so affectionately? Damn it. Now, after seeing the guardian beast's reaction, the Marquis and his wife were completely convinced of her identity as Zaire. No matter how much she tried to explain, it might be of no use, unless she directly released the power of shadow, but doing so would expose her disguise in front of Menxi. It took great effort to gain enough favor from Menxi with the identity of the pink-haired girl. Changing disguises would be so troublesome. Thinking of this, Yumo sighed in distress. Afterward, she frowned and looked at the black cat, who was clinging to her ankle and ruining her plan, with a disgusted expression. Yumo coldly said, "Hey, haven't you hugged enough? Do you want to be stewed into a cat meat hot pot?" Upon hearing this, the black cat, which was the Marquis family's great guardian beast Jay, immediately shuddered. Seemingly aware of the impatience in Yumo's tone, and knowing that continuing to hug her leg wouldn't appease the abyssal demon lord, Jay decisively let go of his claws. Then, he sat obediently in front of Yumo with a well-behaved expression. No more hugging, Lord Yumo. To save his life, Jay went all out. In this big cat's view, although he avoided being killed on the spot by Lord Yumo by timely shifting the target, the displeasure in her eyes was captured without reservation. It was obvious. His intention to attack Lord Yumo was still seen through by her. Well, after all, she was the ruler of the abyssal demons, so how could its little moves possibly escape her eyes? Lord Yumo didn't hold him accountable for now, but there was still the possibility of settling scores later. Even if she didn't take action personally, as long as she informed the other young masters about his actions today, he might not escape the fate of becoming a cat meat skewer. So for his life, Jay abandoned his dignity and began to act cute and beg for mercy. He kept begging for half a day. However, for some reason, his attempt to act cute seemed to have the opposite effect. Why did Lord Yumo's gaze become more and more disgusted? For a moment, Jay felt like crying with no tears. But perhaps hard work would pay off. Jay's constant cuteness did have some effect. Upon learning that the black cat in front of her was once the young chieftain of the Thunder Beast tribe in the cold winter forest, Yumo couldn't help but sigh helplessly. After all, she had never expected the guardian beast to recognize her. Then, considering that Jay was a powerful guardian beast at the 8th rank, which should be a considerable combat power, Yumo gave up on the idea of holding a grudge against him. "Fine, I won't take revenge on you. Just hurry back to your den." Seeing that the murderous intent in Yumo's tone was no longer as heavy as before. Upon hearing that Yumo wouldn't hold it against him, Jay was overjoyed. "Meow, meow, 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 meow. Lord Yumo, you are the best, thank you so much." Jay suddenly leaped up in happiness. He jumped directly onto Yumo's chest. From the skillfulness of his movements, it seemed like this cat must have pounced on a girl's chest quite often. Regarding this, seeing the black cat that pounced on her chest, feeling the joy of the cat's narrow escape from death, Yumo shook her head with mixed feelings. Was it really necessary to be that afraid of her? I had been so friendly to your kind of magical beast clan in the cold winter forest. I even often had the Black Rose family send you some gifts. Yumo complained quietly in her heart. However, she didn't really care about the black cat's attempts to take advantage of her. After all, in her eyes, wasn't this just a cat? However, the fact that Yumo didn't care didn't mean that others didn't care. The next moment, a familiar, icy-cold female voice resounded from behind Yumo. "Oh, where did this smelly cat come from? It's so lewd." As the crisp, girlish voice sounded, a slender jade hand slowly stretched out from behind Yumo, directly grasping the nape of Jay's neck, and lifted the slightly bewildered little black cat. Ahem. Upon hearing the voice, Yumo hurriedly turned her head to look behind her. However, in the instant she turned her head, Yumo's deep blue eyes couldn't help but reveal a surprised expression. Of course, Yumo naturally sensed Menxi's arrival. The reason she was taken aback was mainly due to Menxi's attire at the moment. In order to attend the private banquet tonight, Menxi changed into a white, off-the-shoulder dress with straps prepared by the Marchioness. The simple lace-wide straps accentuated Menxi's collarbones, making them incredibly alluring. With a minimalist neckline revealing a large expanse of her delicate skin, her slender legs wrapped in white garter stockings appeared from time to time under the flowing white gown, similar to the style of a bride's maid. On her silver-white, beautiful long hair, she wore an exquisite sapphire hairpin, and her gorgeous hair was gathered behind her, fully exposing her slender neck. Such delicate attire, paired with Menxi's light makeup, made the already stunning girl even more radiant. Seeing this, Yumo couldn't help but be slightly taken aback. Well, it seems that attending the banquet wasn't entirely a bad thing, Tilda. Looking at the incredibly pleasing silver-haired girl, Yumo couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. It was undeniable that Menxi, now exuding an aura of elegance, was truly too perfect. However, the only flaw might be Menxi's gaze at the moment. At this moment, the beautiful, light purple eyes of the silver-haired girl had lost their usual gentleness, replaced by a touch of gloomy darkness. As she caught sight of a certain part of the cat's body, the darkness in Menxi's eyes became even more intense. "Oh, it's a male. By the way, Zaya-Omo, do you need me to help neuter your pet?" "Neuter? You want to do that asterisk to me?" Before Yumo could say anything. Upon hearing these words, Jay's face showed a ferocious look, staring menacingly at the silver-haired girl in front of him. "Damn! It's one thing for Lord Yumo to fondle me. Who do you think you are? A mere girl at the 6th rank middle stage, daring to be so rude to me. You're courting death." At this moment, in order to defend the dignity of a guardian beast, Jay's eyes gradually filled with dangerous cold light, and the power of thunder began to gather in his sharp claws. As an 8th rank being, if he were to attack the girl in front of him, her fate would be unthinkable. However, before Jay could make a move, an indescribable chill suddenly swept up from his tail, spreading throughout his entire body. "Huh? You, Lord Yumo." At this moment, Jay gasped in shock as he noticed the expression on the pink-haired girl behind him. That icy cold expression seemed to be warning him. "You dare to make a move, I'll chop you up." In an instant, under the influence of the desire to survive, the cat sullenly lowered his ears and could only use a pitiful, pleading gaze to look at Miss Menxi. As for the dignity of a guardian beast, is it more important than his life? Some hours later, after Yumo feigned sleepiness, the banquet inside the Marquis's residence finally came to an end. Following that, with the assistance of several maids, the adorable pink-haired girl was escorted away to prepare for bed. Meanwhile, Marquis Xiumu and his wife, Aurora, returned to their own bedroom after arranging for subsequent matters. Inside the bedroom, seeing his wife's lovely smile for the first time in ages, Xiumu's heart was naturally filled with immense joy. After pouring 2 glasses of wine, Xiumu leaned against the window with a sigh. "Ah, it's like a dream. I never thought that Zaire would actually come back." "Yes, it's just like a dream." Sitting on the bed, Aurora nodded ambiguously. "But it's not a dream. My girl has truly returned." Recalling the timid little girl, Aurora's eyes inevitably became increasingly moist. If Yuan knew about this, she would be happy too, wouldn't she? Yuan He. Hearing this name and sensing the melancholy in Aurora's words, Xiumu gradually lost his smile and looked out the window with a solemn expression. After a moment, the old marquis slowly turned to his wife and said in an encouraging tone, "It's all right, we will definitely find Yuan." With that, the old marquis gently approached and embraced Aurora, patting her back gently. "Don't worry, my wife. Zaire has come back after 4 years, and Yuan will surely return as well. I will find our grandchild and reunite the sisters." Being comforted by Xiumu, Aurora's unease was greatly soothed. The Marchioness leaned against her husband, slowly nodding her head. Thus, the two silently leaned on each other for a long time. Until Aurora's heart completely calmed down, the old couple slowly separated. After releasing his wife, Xiumu seemed to have thought of something and curiously looked at Aurora. "By the way, my wife, what is it? Weren't you going to sleep with Zaire tonight? You're worried that she's not used to being back." "Oh, I did mention that." "Well, aren't you going to go?" Upon hearing this, Aurora shook her head with a smile. "No need, the child is currently in an amnesiac state. She still harbors a bit of resistance toward me. I'd better not disturb her." Aurora's words carried a hint of sadness. After confirming that the pink-haired girl was her granddaughter, Aurora had been longing to get close to her once more, to hear her granddaughter affectionately call her grandma in that cute voice. However, Aurora also knew that Zaire needed time to adjust to her new identity in life. Sometimes things cannot be rushed. Nevertheless, Xiumu raised his eyebrows at Aurora's words. "That's true, but Zaire has always been afraid of being alone, hasn't she? My wife, you're leaving the child alone in such a large room. Aren't you worried that she'll have nightmares?" "I have, of course, taken that into consideration." "Really?" "I arranged for Zaire to share a room with Miss Menxi." "With Miss Menxi?" "Yes, you can tell that Zaire and Miss Menxi have a pretty good relationship. Sharing a room with Menxi should ease her anxiety." Recalling how her granddaughter was close to Menxi, Aurora couldn't help but make this judgment. Marquis Xiumu also agreed with his wife's judgment, nodding slightly. "Indeed, that might be a good idea." On the other side, inside Zaire's bedroom, fresh out of the bath, Menxi wrapped herself in a thin bath towel, her damp body slowly entering the bedroom. Her already stunning beauty and figure, paired with a budding charm similar to a blooming flower, greatly enhanced her allure. Yumo was almost certain. If any man were to see Menxi like this, very few could resist. Even she, upon seeing Menxi's fair and long legs and the faint outline of the softness wrapped in the towel, couldn't help but blush. However, faced with this enchanting scene, Yumo didn't have the energy to truly appreciate it. Because, from the moment Menxi entered her room and emerged from her bath, her beautiful silver-haired face remained expressionless, even slightly gloomy, making Yumo feel guilty. Is Menxi angry? Yumo couldn't help but wonder. Well, why would she be angry? Because of the cat incident earlier. That shouldn't be it, right? Besides, didn't I already kick that cat back into the cemetery? Could it be because she didn't return to the guest house on time today and somehow ended up with the identity of a marquis's daughter? Come on, it's not like I wanted this. Never mind. I'll try to comfort her first. If Menxi gets angry and won't let me follow her, that would be troublesome. If that were the case, I might have to create a new identity to blend in. Thinking this, Yumo, who was drinking juice, slowly jumped off the bed and placed the juice on the side table. Then she carefully approached Menxi, took her hand and asked in a cute, pitiful tone, Sister Mengxi, what's wrong? In response to the pink-haired girl's question, Mengxi remained cold and aloof. She even shook off Yumo's hand and crossed her arms across her chest, clearly displeased. Apparently, Mengxi was angry. This made Yumo feel a bit conflicted. Sister Mengxi, did I do something wrong? You promised to return to the guest house before noon, but where were you? Well, that's because I was taken away by the Marquis family. I didn't intentionally fail to return on time. Yumo's tone was full of grievance. I don't care. Mengxi turned her head away stubbornly. Not keeping a promise is still not keeping a promise. And your sudden disappearance, were you trying to worry me to death? Sister, are you angry? Yes, I'm very angry, and the consequences are severe. Hearing this, Yumo felt a little panicked, and an urgent thought to quickly appease Mengxi rushed to her mind. So Yumo once again revealed her teary, pleading eyes. Woo-woo, so, Sister Mengxi, what can I do to make you feel better? Hearing this, Mengxi slowly turned her head, looking coldly at Yumo. A hint of excitement emerged in her light purple eyes, but it vanished in an instant, not noticed by Yumo. Then Mengxi slowly crouched down, looking seriously at the little girl in front of her. Promise me one thing, and I won't be angry anymore, and I'll also, for the time being, not spank you. Wah, what is it? From now on, be my dedicated pillow, the kind that's always available when I call. Even if I go to the headquarters of a sumo's church in the future, you'll come with me and be my pillow, Tilda. Is a pillow. Is it not okay? Well, it's not okay. Yumo was a little baffled, not understanding why Mengxi, with such a serious expression, would make such a request. But before she could figure it out, Mengxi's urging voice rang again in her ear. So, is it okay or not? All right, startled, Yumo weakly agreed. Tilda, then let's settle it like that. After getting Yumo's affirmative answer, Mengxi's icy expression vanished, revealing her beautiful, radiant smile. In her heart, she felt a momentary relief. After all, after today's events, Mengxi had thought that Yumo might not continue to accompany her and would stay with the Marquis family as a Marquis daughter. In that case, wouldn't she lose her important power bank? This made Mengxi feel a little uneasy. Although she was not sure what she would do with Sister Yumo. In the future, Mengxi still felt temporarily at ease after obtaining Yumo's promise. With that in mind, the young girl took a deep breath and slowly got up. Seeing the juice prepared by the maid on the side table, a somewhat exhausted Mengxi picked up one of the glass directly. Seeing this, Yumo was taken aback. Sister, that's mine. However, before Yumo could finish speaking, Mengxi had already poured the juice into her mouth. Moments later, Mengxi, holding the juice glass, frowned slightly. Did you just drink from this glass? Yes, the other one is yours. As she spoke, Yumo pointed awkwardly at the other brand new glass of juice on the side table. But Mengxi didn't say much. After feeling the increasingly vigorous energy inside her body, she looked at the glass's mouth and then at Yumo's pink lips. At this moment, Mengxi fell into a strange silence. Yumo, what's going on? And our Yumo had an inexplicable bad feeling. Within the forested lands of the Shanlin Duchy in the western part of Ansita continent. At this moment, in a hidden underground base, a giant, hideous statue resembling a demon stood tall. And atop the sharp claws of the demon statue, a man with dark green long hair lay quietly. He had a handsome and refined face, with two sword-like eyebrows slanting into his temples, a pair of phoenix eyes full of charisma, a high nose bridge, and tightly closed thin lips. With his 1.85 meters height, he was a rather handsome man. Seeing the man emerge from his dreamlike state, a woman wearing a black robe stood at the base of the stone statue and quickly kneeled down respectfully. then said, "Master, there is a matter I must report." What's the matter? Why are you so anxious?" Glancing at the devoted and powerful archbishop beneath the statue, Wilt, the leader of the divine punishment sect, slowly revealed a kind smile. "There's no need for such formality between us, Jeller." As he spoke, Wilt slowly raised his hand. A dense dark green aura emerged beside Jeller, lifting the kneeling woman off the ground. "Tell me, what brings you to see me so suddenly?" Hearing this, the woman named Jeller slowly removed her hood, revealing a fairly exquisite face. "Benjamin from Wind City Linfeng has sent a message, asking for our help to deal with the granddaughter of Marquis Xiumu that recently founded. In return, he will help secure his inheritance rights, and afterward he will fully permit our sex actions in the northern territories of the Snow Knight Empire." Oh! Hearing this, Wilt couldn't help but raise an eyebrow, then scoffed disdainfully. "That guy, we've already helped him so many times, and he still hasn't been able to control the Marquis family. What a waste." Wilt's heart felt slightly displeased. Their divine punishment sect. Their doctrine was to assist the abyssal demons in purifying the entire world. At present, all forces on the Anseta continent that intend to resist the abyssal demons are, strictly speaking, enemies of their divine punishment sect. Compared to the resistance forces across the continent, their divine punishment sect was undoubtedly lacking in strength. However, they also had a huge advantage. That was the fact that the divine punishment sect was hidden, allowing them to covertly make various manipulations. Over the years, they had been following the orders, constantly creating conflicts, causing destruction, or assassinating heirs among the various major forces on the continent. In short, they had been involved in many acts that weakened the resistance forces. Among them, the Marquis family in the northern territories of the Snow Knight Empire. They naturally couldn't let it go. They originally planned to support a foolish Benjamin, making him the heir in control of the Marquis family. In that case, the divine punishment sect would be free to act in the northern territories without restraint. A lord without administrative ability, combined with the church's sacrificial activities, would eventually lead to the decline of the Marquis family. That had been Wilt's original plan. However, Benjamin's performance had been truly disappointing. Even with our assistance, Benjamin's inadequate abilities were insufficient to stabilize the Marquis family. Moreover, his lack of patience would eventually expose his relationship with us. Might as well find someone else to support. Why not choose Carlotta? That person seems capable, fairly greedy, and easy to control. Wilt raised his hand to support his chin, starting to think about how to weaken the Marquis family, so that the defense of the northern territories would become more hollow. When the abyssal demons invade from the south, they would be unstoppable. However, Jeller, as if he thought of something, Wilt looked at the brown-haired woman named Jeller with some confusion. "Didn't I say before that we don't need to worry about Benjamin's affairs? Why did you come to find me specifically for his matters?" Upon hearing this, Jeller lowered her head respectfully once again. "Master, Benjamin has also provided several other important pieces of information." "What?" "Now, the girl of destiny from the Asumo's church is also at the Marquis' residence. At the moment, a large number of the Marquis family's troops are at the frontline fortress, guarding against possible attacks from the abyssal demons. In addition, according to the information provided by the Nightingale organization, only 2 Earth Apostles are currently protecting the Saintess." "Oh, this is really good news, huh?" "Yes, Benjamin said that if we are willing to take action, he will fully cooperate." Hearing these words, Wilt's face immediately showed a horrifying grin. His handsome face was instantly filled with chilling intent. This is indeed an excellent opportunity. After a creepy laugh, Wilt slowly stood up, with hands clasped together and devout eyes looking up at the demon statue above. The previous failure in Albino disappointed the Almighty. Now, we finally have a chance to redeem ourselves, Tilda. The more he spoke, the more excited Wilt became. His dark green eyes were already filled with fanaticism, and the powerful demonic energy within his body even began to surge at this moment. Great Demon Lord, this time, I won't disappoint you. However, since action was to be taken, preparations must be made properly. With this in mind, Wilt suppressed his somewhat frenzied heart and resumed his usual kind and elegant image as the leader. He slowly turned his head, looked at Jeller beneath the stone statue, and spoke in an unquestionable tone. Issue my orders, summon all the archbishops who are not on a mission. As you wish, master. Meanwhile, within the Wind City, inside a tavern outside the guest house, several members of the Asumo's church were having a meal. From the man at the head of the table with his iconic red waist-length hair, it wasn't hard to deduce that he was the seventh hero of the Asumo's church, Cabin Vetora. Normally, according to the bishop's orders, he was to guard the girl of destiny. Thus, when Menxi went to the Marquis's mansion, he planned to accompany her. However, the girl of destiny actually rejected his proposal and left him to guard the guest house. How could a hero be reduced to house watching? Cabin was naturally dissatisfied. However, after being glared at by Menxi's sharp gaze, Cabin had no choice but to obey reluctantly. Nonetheless, feeling the disdain in Menxi's eyes, Cabin's pride was deeply hurt, and a nameless anger gradually rose within his heart. Damn it! I am a hero. How dare you look down on me like that? If it wasn't for the fact that you're the girl of destiny, I would have taught you a harsh lesson long ago. The more he thought about it, the angrier Cabin became. He suddenly gulped down a bowl of wine. Despite his resentment, Cabin knew full well that as an unsophisticated man, not only was he looked down upon by the girl of destiny, but even other heroes and ordinary church members held him in disdain. If he truly wished to escape this embarrassing situation and become a respected hero, he would have to accomplish feats that would impress everyone. Thinking about this, Cabin became even more depressed. After all, nowadays, tasks that could gain everyone's admiration would basically fall into the hands of high-ranking heroes and heavenly apostles, leaving none for him. His tasks would likely only include protection, investigation, or simple abyssal demon hunts. Despite being a hero himself, why was he always so stifled? Goddess, can't you give me a chance? While drinking his sorrows away, Cabin prayed constantly in his heart. However, at this very moment, it seemed that the goddess heard Cabin's prayers. As Cabin opened another bottle of wine, using his saintly level of powerful hearing, he suddenly caught some snippets of conversation from other guests. The moment he heard the content of their conversation, Cabin was instantly struck dumb. Really, I'm not lying. I really went to the demon temple before. What? He said demon temple. On the verge of being intoxicated by alcohol, Cabin instantly sobered up, and the wine in his mouth was sprayed out. The specific location of the demon temple has always been a question that the Asumo's church has longed to figure out. To completely crush the abyssal demons and save the world from their threat, the root of the abyssal demon's birth, the demon palace, must be destroyed. For centuries, the church has launched countless exploration missions to find this ancient palace shrouded in a mysterious barrier. However, whether it was aerial reconnaissance or sending adventure squads deep into the winter forest, all attempts ended in failure without exception. Many times, adventurers sent into the forest would fall to the abyssal demon's attacks, like the recent case of the eighth hero, Pix, who ventured into the forest. Exploring the winter forest was undoubtedly a life-or-death mission, but the interest in exploring it has always been strong among the members of the church. Why? Because of the generous rewards. If the specific location of the demon temple was found, the explorer would receive endless wealth, honor, and an elevated position within the church, even on the continent. The Pope would grant countless cultivation resources and aid in breaking through to the eighth rank. Even without finding the exact location, those who contributed to the exploration mission would still receive great rewards. With great rewards come great efforts. That is why, within the church, there has always been strong interest in exploring the winter forest, especially for a seventh-ranked hero like Cabin. What if they encounter a demon king-ranked beast during the exploration? There are only 3 demon king-ranked beasts in the winter forest, and the forest is so vast. Who says they will definitely encounter one? Cabin's heart had always thought so. As a rough man, he had always been looked down upon by everyone in the church. He was eager to have a chance to prove himself, and finding the exact location of the demon temple would undoubtedly be the best opportunity. Therefore, when he heard the conversation at the neighboring table, Cabin's ears perked up instantly. Really, I'm not lying. I really went to the demon temple before. The demon temple. He's been to the demon temple. Cabin's eyes narrowed slightly, a trace of doubt appearing on his face. In fact, over the years, there have been no shortage of people who have claimed to know the specific location of the demon temple and used this to commit fraud. So, whenever he heard such words, Cabin always held a full sense of vigilance, and basically, these people were just spouting nonsense as he had suspected. However, this time it seemed a bit different. Hearing their confident and excited words, Cabin couldn't help but have a thought. Could it be true? Has he really been to the demon temple? If it's true, wouldn't this be a tremendous opportunity? Thinking about this, Cabin put down his bottle of wine and stood up abruptly. Under the astonished gaze of his fellow Asumo's church companions, the seventh hero charged straight to the neighboring table. Hey, who are you? Wait, a member of the Asumo's church. The black-haired middle-aged man who was narrating his legendary experiences to his drinking buddies showed displeasure when he saw Cabin suddenly barge in. However, upon sensing the terrifying sane-tranked aura emanating from Cabin, the man immediately withered and dared not say anything more. He had no choice but to let Cabin kick his drinking buddies out of the room. After driving away the onlookers, Cabin suddenly sat down in front of the middle-aged man and immediately asked in a serious tone, "How do you know the location of the demon temple? Have you been there?" Hearing this, the middle-aged man was at a loss for words, not directly saying anything, but looking at Cabin with a strange expression, as if to say, "Who the hell are you? Why should I tell you?" To this, Cabin gave a cold smile and took out 5,000 crystal coins directly from his spatial ring, tossing them in front of the middle-aged man. "Answer my questions honestly. If I'm satisfied, all of these are yours." Seeing the purple glowing crystal coins, the middle-aged man couldn't help but feel moved. After hesitating for a moment, the man gave a slight nod. "Well, what do you want to ask?" Seeing the other party's cooperation, Cabin smiled slightly. "First of all, what's your name?" "Jace, former captain of the Black Fox Mercenary Corps." "Jace, that's a pretty common name. So Jace, do you really know the location of the demon temple?" At this, the middle-aged man named Jace nodded affirmatively. "Yes." "How did you find out? Have you really been there?" "Yes, I have been there. It was during the time when the abyssal demons attacked the Galrose fortress. My gambling friends and I had to enter the winter forest to find treasures to pay off our gambling debts. We wanted to find some rare resources or ancient treasures left behind by our ancestors. After searching for 5 days, we somehow passed through a barrier and saw the temple. There, there. After the conversation had ended, Jace had told Cabin everything he had seen and experienced. Then, the somewhat greedy middle-aged man locked his gaze on the crystal coins on the ground. Now that I've told you everything, what about the money? However, at this moment, Cabin didn't respond to him immediately, but thoughtfully stared at the man in front of him. Indeed, this man's descriptions of many situations in the eastern part of the forest were almost identical to the records in the church, and with this guy's initial 6th-ranked strength, he should have indeed entered the winter forest. However, not encountering any abyssal demons for 5 days, and even somehow finding the demon temple seemed a bit unrealistic. Although he was eager to learn the specific location of the demon temple, Cabin was not so impulsive. The doubts in his heart suppressed his impulse. But this is only your side of the story. What about your adventure companions? I want to see them. They were attacked by abyssal demons on their way back and died. Really, all of them died? Yes. Only you were left. Unconsciously, a strong doubt appeared in Cabin's eyes. Although your story sounds convincing, I won't believe it just from your words alone. Do you have any evidence to prove that you've really been to the Demon Palace? If you can't convince me, don't even think about getting this money. This I do have. After hesitating for a while, seemingly under the influence of the power of money, Jace nodded and carefully took out a small piece of stone from his bundle, handing it to Cabin. This. What is this, my goodness? Upon receiving the stone, seeing the ancient runes recorded in ancient books on the stone, feeling the traces of time on the stone, and the strong atmosphere of the shadow power contained within, Cabin's face changed drastically, as if he had been struck by lightning. He was stunned. Is this a fragment of the demon temple? Yes, I secretly picked it up from the ground at that time. Jace said nervously. So is this enough evidence now? Enough. Staring intently at the fragment in his hand, Cabin excitedly said. It seemed. This time it was like a pie had fallen from the sky. As long as he takes a locator to record the exact coordinates, he would gain countless honors. With this, no one would dare to underestimate him again. Then, the 7th hero excitedly patted Jace's shoulder. You just said that you still remember the way, right? A path with fewer abyssal demons. Yes, sir, what are you? Take me there. Are you serious? Yes, as long as you take me there. All these are yours. Saying this, hundreds of thousands of crystal coins were taken out by Cabin from his spatial ring and thrown onto a nearby table. Under the temptation of money, Jace finally nodded. Fine, I'll take you there. There. After discussing the specific departure time, Cabin excitedly left the room, ready to inform his teammates about this matter. Thinking about his glorious life after his success, Cabin's face showed an unprecedented smile. As the door closed again, only Jace was left in the room. And at this moment, a strange blue-gold light suddenly emanated from Jace's body. As the light dissipated, Jace, who hadn't gotten drunk, inexplicably closed his eyes and fell to the ground. However, soon, the black-haired middle-aged man opened his eyes again and struggled to get up from the ground. But now, Jace's eyes no longer held the greed and ecstasy from before, only a strong sense of confusion. Looking at the scene in the room, the middle-aged man scratched his head with a strange expression. Strange, how did I end up here? Did I sleepwalk again? in the northern part of the Snow Knight Empire in an unknown area. The reason why it's unknown is mainly that the two little fellows walking here still don't know what kind of place this is. At this moment, braving the biting cold wind and violent blizzard, a cute little white wolf, wagging its tail, is strolling across the plain. On its head stands a delicate and adorable gray bird. Undoubtedly, these two are Li Mo and Li Yu. As for why they would be wandering around here instead of going to Windy City to find their mother Yumo, that's because they got lost. That's right, they got lost. After all, they snuck in, so in order not to cause any disturbance, these two little ones have always been suppressing their power, holding back the release of the shadow power, and maintaining their cute pet form. By doing so, in the eyes of most people, they appear as harmless and adorable spirit beasts. Only powerful 7th or 8th tier beings would be able to see through their incredible disguise. However, there's a problem with this approach, which is that they can't recklessly use the shadow power to sense the nearby situation. So, to quietly arrive at Windy City, the two sisters had to rely on a map. Li Mo naturally couldn't use it, as the silly little white wolf couldn't understand the map at all. So the task of navigating fell on Li Yu's head. But whether it was because she couldn't read the map, or her sense of direction was poor, or some other reason, under Li Yu's command, the two sisters got completely lost. And so they found themselves lost in the midst of the wind. "Woohoo, Li Yu, have you found the way yet? We're lost, aren't we?" After walking for so long, the impatient little white wolf lowered her ears and tail, and listlessly said. In response, the little gray bird on her back hastily replied, "No, no, we're not lost. We're almost there, we'll find it soon." Li Yu, who was seriously studying the map, replied to her sister for the 13th time with these words. "Now, we just need to figure out whether we're on the Fugalo, Icaro, or the Snowfall area. Then we'll know the way. Isn't that being lost?" For the first time, Li Mo complained. Afterward, the little white wolf lay listlessly on the snow. "Li Yu, I'm hungry, woohoo." Hearing this, the little gray bird put down the map and looked helplessly at her sister below. "Who told you, sister, not to eat something before leaving?" "Mother wasn't there at that time, so I had no appetite. Li Yu, didn't you also not eat much?" "I will, Patting her own chirping stomach, the little gray bird also started to feel a bit depressed. For a moment, she couldn't refute her sister's words. Having run around in this area for so many days without eating anything, it was normal for them to feel hungry. Although, as demon kings, not eating for a long time wouldn't affect them much, but for them, who had been raised by their mother and accustomed to 3 meals a day, not eating for several days really made their stomachs uncomfortable. "Li Yu, where can we find something to eat?" Li Yu was at a loss for words for a moment. On this broken plain, they hadn't seen any magical beasts or spirit beasts until now. Who knew if they were all hibernating? They wanted to rob a few lucky travelers, but they couldn't even see a shadow of a person. Troublesome. Sister. However, just as Li Yu was thinking about how to find food, the little white wolf suddenly raised her head and looked into the distance. "Li Yu, there's the smell of food." Before Li Yu could say anything, the excited little white wolf dragged Li Yu and cheerfully ran towards the source of the food aroma. A moment later, on a small slope not far away, a wolf and a bird poked their heads out, curiously looking down the slope. Seeing the scene below, Li Mo's face lit up with joy, and tears of happiness flowed from the corners of her mouth uncontrollably. At this moment, in Li Mo and Li Yu's line of sight, due to the blizzard, a caravan of more than 30 people was camping here. After setting up a defensive barrier, several maids and chefs began preparing meals. The aroma of food continuously spread all around, constantly stimulating Li Mo's taste buds. So much food, let's go and ask for some. Wait, sister. Just as Li Mo was about to start her robbery career, she was immediately stopped by Li Yu. The puzzled little white wolf looked at her sister sullenly. What's wrong, Li Yu? Aren't you hungry? Didn't you notice that emblem? Emblem? After making a confused noise, Li Mo looked in the direction Li Yu was pointing and saw the delicate emblem outlined in gold on the carriage. However, after observing it for a moment, the silly wolf shook her head in confusion. What is that? Hearing this answer, Li Yu's face instantly darkened. Sister, didn't I lecture you these things just a while ago? Can you not give things back to the teacher so soon, or were you sleepwalking during the class? After complaining to herself, Li Yu sighed resignedly. Then, the little gray bird said helplessly, that emblem is the Valentine family crest, which means that the people sitting in the carriage are probably royalty. Li Mo meow. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, on the outskirts of the bustling military base of the Snow Knight, Empire's southern capital, Flourishing City. As usual, in the early morning, Patrol Captain Kodo led dozens of guardsmen to the outer area of Flourishing City to patrol and drive away nearby wandering magical beasts, preparing for the opening of the city gates in an hour. However, today's patrol seemed a bit different than usual. It's so quiet, Kodo, who was patrolling the mountain with some doubt in his mind. In the past, they would encounter numerous magical beasts during their patrols and use great effort to drive them away. However, today, they hadn't even seen a single bird, let alone any magical beasts. The whole mountain area was eerily silent, with only the sound of their armor clinking against one another. Unconsciously, Kodo began to feel an ominous premonition creeping into his heart. At that moment, a soldier beside him suddenly cried out in surprise. Captain, there seems to be someone near the cliff. Someone at this time. Kodo picked up his telescope, puzzled, and looked towards the cliff. The next moment, his eyes narrowed, and an astonished expression appeared on his face. In his line of sight, a beautiful woman in red stood proudly on the edge of the cliff. Her phoenix-like eyes, long eyelashes, delicate nose, and rosy lips were complemented by her flowing, beautiful crimson hair that danced in the wind. Her curvaceous and stunning figure made her undoubtedly one in a million. At the same time, this beautiful woman wore a full set of silver armor that shimmered with every movement. The breastplate, skirt armor, and the hilt of the sword around her waist all featured the emblem of the crimson blood lotus. Her fair skin peeked through the gaps in her iron armor and leather garments. Her attire made her look both valiant and alluring. The sight of such a woman stirred Kodo's heart slightly. However, he quickly suppressed his feelings, remembering that as a soldier guarding the city, his duty must come first. He needed to inquire about this suspicious person who had appeared mysteriously in the magical beast-infested forest. Thus, Kodo slowly approached the red-haired woman on his warhorse and said, "Miss, this area of the forest is currently off-limits. Please explain why you are here and kindly show me your identification card." Kodo instantly became very serious as he began his official duties, not letting the woman's beauty soften his tone. However, upon hearing Kodo's words, the red-haired woman did not comply with his request to show her identification card. Instead, she slowly turned her head to gaze at Kodo and the soldiers behind him. Her indifferent, orange-red eyes sent a chill down Kodo's spine. "Miss, please show me your identification card." Kodo's voice took on a deadly tone as he saw that the woman had not replied. His aura also began to gradually emanate from him. Yet the woman remained emotionless in the face of this threatening aura. She even silently turned her head away, looking towards the distant city. Then her clear, melodious but emotionless voice suddenly reached Kodo's ears. "Are all the guards awake now?" "Huh, why are you asking this?" Kodo couldn't help but feel a sense of unease, and he instinctively raised his hand to grip the hilt of his sword. "It's because if everyone's asleep, there won't be enough time to escape. I still need someone to send a message to the imperial capital," the woman said. Upon hearing her words, Kodo furrowed his brows. The woman in front of him hadn't displayed any power, but she exuded an indescribable pressure. Kodo unsheathed his sword, pointing it directly at the red-haired woman. "What? What do you mean by?" However, before he could finish his sentence, a crimson flash of light suddenly streaked across his vision. In the next moment, still trying to comprehend what had just happened, Kodo's head violently collided with the ground. While what just happened? Only after realizing that he could no longer control his body did Kodo understand that his head had been severed from his body. He couldn't grasp what the woman before him had done. Unfortunately, he no longer had the chance to understand. Kodo's consciousness quickly plunged into the boundless darkness. Meanwhile, the red light formed by the power of the shadowy force struck each of the soldiers behind Kodo indiscriminately. In the following instant, accompanied by the shrill screams of agony, the countryside path was stained red with blood after the red light flashed. Led by Kodo, dozens of patrol guards were instantly dismembered, and their blood dyed the earth red. The forest returned to its previous dead silence. The red-haired woman who initiated the carnage casually turned her head, gazing at the distant military base. There wasn't a trace of guilt in her orange-red eyes. Her expression remained cold and chilling to the bone. At the same time, a faint blue light emitted from the communication device in the woman's right hand, and a magnetic male voice came through. "Well then, please take care of the rest, Sister Kalina." Hearing this familiar voice, the woman with beautiful long red hair named Kalina slowly raised her hand, looked at the magic stone in her hand, and replied calmly, "I understand." As soon as the words fell, Kalina's slender fingers applied a slight force, and the communication magic stone shattered suddenly. The fragments of the magic stone quickly vanished in a horrifyingly high temperature. "First, let's prepare." After murmuring a few words to herself, Kalina slowly raised her hand and unbuttoned her collar. Soon, the exquisite silver armor was removed piece by piece from her body. In fact, not just the armor, but the black skirt, stockings, and underwear underneath were also taken off by Kalina, one by one. The enchanting woman undressed herself in the middle of the forest, revealing her delicate and fair skin that was hidden under her clothes. Fortunately, there were no living people nearby. Otherwise, witnessing such an enticing scene might have caused them to bleed to death from a nosebleed. After removing the special necklace on her neck, which was used to conceal her breath, Kalina entered a state of complete nakedness. She seemed unconcerned about it. Instead, she slowly mobilized the power of shadows around her body, directing it to the space ring in the palm of her hand. Accompanied by a wave of spatial fluctuations, all the clothes and equipment on the ground were collected into the space ring. Kalina knew that once she entered that mode, everything around her would turn to ashes, including her clothes and the equipment she had painstakingly saved up for. Kalina was a very thrifty girl, and she didn't want to waste these items needlessly. That's why she removed them all and stored them in the space ring. Then, Kalina snapped her fingers lightly, and the space ring was wrapped in the red shadow power, slowly drifting into the distance. After making preparations, the naked Kalina walked to the edge of the cliff and sighed helplessly. To be honest, under normal circumstances, she wouldn't want to enter that mode. but for the sake of her beloved mother. Now, she decided to make a big fuss. Well then, let's begin. Kalina closed her eyes. In an instant, as Kalina's shadow power within her body began to surge violently, the terrifying fluctuations of energy spread rapidly in all directions, centered around her. The tranquility of the forest was completely shattered at this moment. The mountains shook with a thunderous tremble, the sky changed color. Under the envelopment of the red shadow power, clusters of flames gradually ignited on Kalina's delicate body. On the other side, at the distant Fanhua military base, Base Commander Casafiero was doing his morning exercise on the city wall while waiting for the return of the patrol guards. At this moment, a terrifying heat wave suddenly came from behind him. It caused the commander's face to change dramatically. With disbelief, he turned his head to look at the Yilan forest behind him. The numerous soldiers around him did the same. After feeling the horrifying high temperature, they all turned their attention to the distance. What is that? As they looked at the distant forest, the pupils of Casafiero and the soldiers around him suddenly shrank. An unprecedented fear appeared on their faces. At this moment, the distant mountains, for an unknown time, had been covered by red flames, turning them into a sea of fire and a hellish inferno. In the center of the sea of fire, the scorching flames continuously gathered, and a demon made entirely of flames entered Casafiero and the others' field of vision. Soon after, the gigantic flame demon, like a pillar supporting the sky, roared towards the direction of the military base with a ground-shaking sound. The frenzied roar, with an overwhelming momentum and scorching high temperature, attacked the entire Fanhua military base. And besides the high temperature, what was coming was the horrifying shadow power aura that was so strong it caused despair and an unstoppable force. The incoming aura and suffocating high temperature alone instantly caused countless soldiers to faint and fall to the ground. Listening to the deafening alarm sound in his ears, looking at the distant flame demon with its rainbow-like momentum, Casafiero held his breath and even stood still in a daze. In his black eyes, there was an overwhelming disbelief. Why would the inferno suddenly attack here? Casafiero couldn't help but start to doubt his own eyes. However, the overwhelming heat wave and the oppressive shadow power that were howling and coming told that everything in front was not an illusion. Quick, notify the Imperial City. After taking a deep breath, Casafiero shouted hoarsely at the communication soldier behind him. However, at the very moment he opened his mouth, the surging sea of flames, carrying the momentum of burning everything, attacked from all directions, swallowing the military base that had not yet activated its defensive magic. Just as the southern part of the Snow Knight Empire was being ravaged by the flame catastrophe. Inside the imperial palace of Sky Dome, the capital, the crown prince, Zhu Tianao, was planning to have breakfast with the Archbishop Macaro of the Asumos Church and to discuss the cooperation between the Snow Knight Empire and the Asumos Church. Just like before, after giving an impassioned speech, the crown prince of the Snow Knight Empire confidently sat across from Macaro. What do you think, Archbishop Macaro? If the Asumos Church is willing to support me in terms of reputation, I will not hesitate to offer the design plans of those previous weapons. Hearing Zhu Tianao's ambitious declaration to save the world, the blond man named Macaro silently took a sip of tea. After remaining silent for a long time, the Archbishop finally showed a slightly apologetic expression. I'm sorry, Your Highness, this is a major matter concerning Lady Mengxi. I must consult with His Holiness the Pope first. Only after receiving the Pope's instructions can I answer you. That's natural, then I will have to trouble Archbishop Macaro. Your Highness the Crown Prince, there's no need to be so polite. What are your thoughts on the matter of the Allied forces, Archbishop Macaro? Well, about that, him. However, before Macaro could reply, the door of the dining hall suddenly opened, and a disheveled soldier rushed in. Seeing this slightly unseemly scene, Zutianos couldn't help but frown, scolding. There's an honored guest here. What kind of behavior is this in such a panic? My apologies, Your Highness there's an urgent report from the south. Urgent report. Muttering these two words, Zutianos slowly withdrew the displeasure on his face, looking at the kneeling royal guard with a somewhat serious expression. What's the emergency? The south of the empire. The inferno has appeared in the southern part of the empire. It is now rushing towards the capital from the south. What? Upon hearing this, Zutianos' face changed drastically, his fists clenched tightly. Behind him, the archbishop named Macaro revealed an imperceptible and subtle expression after hearing the words inferno. Of course, Zutianos, with his attention focused on the royal guard, did not notice the change in Macaro's expression behind him. Instead, he looked solemnly towards the south. The Inferno, an abyssal demon of the Demon King level, has emerged at this time, including the Snow Devourer and Blood Butterfly that appeared in the north before. These creatures seem to be particularly caring for our snowy night empire. Hee. I wasn't planning to find you monsters just yet. But unexpectedly, you came to me on your own. Don't blame me for not being polite then. With that thought, a strong desire for battle gradually emerged in Zutianos' azure eyes. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story. And if have any suggestion to a new novel or want next part of any series, comment down. Our target is to get 1K subscriber. There will be SUPRISC for all of you. Stay tuned.